everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Decision Hour. I'm your host, Adam Bird, and we got another great interview. I'm excited about this one because I've been trying to get my buddy on for, I don't know, ever. And I'm saying that just to kind of bust his balls a little bit, but I'm really super happy to have my friend Eric Balough on. He is the CEO and president of Rick's Roasters, who does our HMG blends. It's not Rick, it's Eric, and we'll get into that here in just a few minutes. So, Eric, welcome to the show, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, man.
Finally.
Yeah. No, man, I love it, man. You're a busy guy. So I just appreciate the time that we were able to work out this morning to get you on. Let's kick it off, and why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so as he obviously mentioned, my name's Eric Balough. I'm the president and CEO of Rick's Roasters Coffee Company. I'm also still currently an active duty Army officer. Basically getting ready to retire though here within the next couple of months. Medical retirement. So just shy of my 20. But hey, it is what it is. It probably give me more time to do coffee. So
nice.
Live in Stafford, Virginia with my wife, Liza, my 2 kids and my 2 dogs. And I'm also an avid hockey fan. Caps are my team. So
nice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess it depends on the year, but I mean that's good. I love hockey, love watching it. I love going to the games, and I think a lot of people, most like at least me growing up, I played hockey at a very young age. I was not any good because I had like the double blades, and I think they made a custom skate for me because I used to skate on my ankles because I was that bad. So, but that's neither here nor there. Let's back to you here. So coffee, you're active duty. And for the listeners, I mean, I know, but for the listeners, you're getting ready to retire. What got you into the coffee game?
Yeah. So kind of a funny story. There's a couple, I guess there's a couple of parts to this, but I'll start kind of from the beginning. In 2016, I got assigned to go, I got assigned to an assignment in Turkey. And just before I left, my wife and I were starting to go to farmers markets and stuff like that. And we stumbled on this coffee company, a local guy, Navy vet, and, started drinking some of his coffee. I was like, man, this is pretty good. It's like, this is probably some of the best coffee I've ever had. And, it didn't really kind of sink in as like, okay, I'd sometimes get this as a treat, but usually probably go to the grocery store and pick up something else. I went to Turkey for a year. The coffee culture in Turkey, I mean, it goes back.
Yeah.
Pretty far.
Thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah, a couple of years. And then when I came back, I got assigned to go to grad school. So I have a couple of different hobbies. Woodworking was one of them. But, one of the other things that I kind of wanted to explore for a little while was roasting coffee. So I finally just decided to break out a frying, buy some green beans off of Amazon, break out a frying pan, and throw the beans on a skillet on my grill. So I obsessed over this, watched a dozen YouTube videos on doing this, and lo and behold, I'm like, man, actually the first couple of ones turned out terrible. But the smell was amazing. So I kind of got addicted to the smell of it. And then when I hit the first one right, oh man, I was like, this is awesome. So it started kind of snowballing from there. And I went from buying like a pound or two of green beans to my my pantry being full of green beans. My wife is going, what the hell are you doing with all this coffee? We can't possibly drink all this. I was like, yeah, watch me. So anyway, going forward into grad school, the next semester, I had a class project where the teacher says, hey, pick it was a systems engineering class. He says, pick a system, and engineer it. That was like the parameters of the assignment. So I said, I'm kind of into this coffee thing. I could see, retiring and maybe doing this. It's kind of cool. I'd gotten bitten by the business bug a few years earlier. And this was something that I felt like I could really sink my teeth into. So I was thinking back to this company, this local company, where I was getting some of this other coffee from. And I had, so in my head, I laid out this plan for my systems engineering class using this local company kind of as a template.
Okay.
And so I got a B on that, which, for those that don't know, and for grad school, a B is like a C minus, which is kind of funny. And like, the guy that invented FedEx, he's an Air Force vet, and I think he got like a C plus or a B on his project of FedEx. Yeah. So who's laughing now, right? And so a couple of months, about a month or two after I submitted the project, got my not a B. I had a couple of my classmates that announced randomly that they were starting a coffee company. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. So I started asking them questions. So I'm like, hey, what's your plan for this? What's your plan for this? What's your plan for this? I basically got the deer in the headlights look, and they're like, you want in? I said, sure. Now, what I'm not telling you on this, so this is the funny part, is that that conversation happened while my wife was out of town for her sister's bridal shower.
Oh. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you that have done things without your significant other, I'm interested. So how did she take it when she got back, Eric?
So, she gets back and, she's kind of unpacking and I'm like, hey, honey, by the way, I just happened to sign up in a coffee company partnership. She's like, you what? I'm like, yeah, it'll be great. She's like, uh-huh. So anyway, so part of our problem with the coffee with this was that we were getting green beans from Nicaragua. Yeah, like I said, she was thrilled.
Yeah.
We were getting green beans from Nicaragua, and originally trying to transport like 100 pounds at a time on carry-on luggage to a drop point in Dallas Fort Worth to then package it and sell it. So I mean, we were literally like coffee mules. And I said there's got to be a better way to do it.
It's just you're picturing. I hope you. I'm laughing hard because one, I know Eric's wife, so I'm picturing what she looks like in her reaction. Now I love her, so she's absolutely hilarious. And
oh yeah, now you can imagine how that would turn out.
I know exactly, which is why I'm laughing so hard. But it's like the other part of that is like I'm picturing people like trying to carry 100 pounds of coffee in a luggage to a drop-off point. Because it doesn't sound shady at all.
No, perfect. No, we were just importing Central American agricultural products. No big deal, right? So this is costing us like dollars per pound. All right. Like, well, surely there's got to be a better way. Well, so the magic number to get to cut your shipping costs from dollars per pound to pennies per pound is 10,000 pounds.
Oh, okay. All right.
And no big deal. So we're like, so how the hell do we move 10,000 pounds of coffee? And so I said, you know what? I'm just going to start emailing local roasters. And one of them was the guy that, one of them was the company that I had in mind. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe we'll get some responses, maybe not. But anyway, so this guy, he responds back to me and he invites me down to his roaster. I'm like, man, this is kind of cool. And so I meet this guy. We'll call him Sean Ricks, for sake of argument. And he says, hey, I got a proposal for you. I was like, okay, well, what's that? He said, well, I'll I'll teach you I'll teach you everything you need to know about the coffee business. I'm like, okay, sounds pretty awesome. What's the catch? He's like, well, you'll be a licensee. I'm like, okay, cool. What's the catch? It's like, no, that's pretty much it. I want you to, I want you to help spread the Rick's Roasters brand, do your own thing, and learn the business. I'm like, cool. What's the catch?
Right,
And
right.
he's like, there's no
Yeah,
catch.
yeah.
So, so, and then, so we started doing that. We started growing and at the time we were called Brass Bullet Coffee Company.
What year was this,
Uh,
Eric?
this was 2018.
All right, so real quick, folks. So, Eric's kind of giving us a backstory on this. So the guy that he's talking about, Sean Ricks, was he was the one that founded Rick's Roasters originally, and I know Sean myself, and that's how I met Eric. And we're getting to that point, so I'll let Eric take over from there. But
Yeah. And so Sean, and that there's like at first it seems just like it's too good to be true.
salt of the earth kind of guy.
But it wasn't. He was he's genuine about this.
Yeah.
Well, so he and we won't go into the details, but
Right.
long story short is that he still had some significant health issues, and so he and his wife decided to retire down to Florida, and so he was looking for buyers for the coffee company. So we threw our hat in the ring because we started gaining some momentum, and we're going, well, shoot, we don't know what happens if we lose this deal because we think we're doing pretty good at this point. And so we basically bought the company. So going back to the original, kind of just the original thing of 4 years before I, even thought about this company, I started drinking the coffee.
Right.
And then did a project with this as my mental model. And then a year later, we're buying the company.
Right.
So, I mean,
it came full circle for you.
Yeah, it really does. And there are times when I just sit in the roastery, and since then we've all, you've seen it now,
Yeah.
we've moved locations,
Yeah.
and I just sit there and I marvel at just how awesome, it's obviously had its ups and downs, but just how awesome it's been overall. I mean, I sit there and go, man, this is pretty cool.
I remember coming down last time. It's when we put the blends together. I brought my buddy James down there with me.
Yep.
And so just to give you guys kind of paint a picture for you guys listening. And first off, real quick, if you're listening to the show, that means you're already online. Go ahead and open up another browser and go to ricksroasters.com, and you can see the plethora of different blends that they have. They carry the HMG blend, but they also have several other really great blends. I would recommend the Four Horsemen's. That's an awesome blend. Check that out and order some coffee today. I went down there, and Eric had called me. I guess it was probably about a year ago, and we had talked when Eric kind of took over, bought the company, bought Sean out. I started working with Eric, obviously, and Eric and I kind of hit it off. Both Army vets. Him being an officer, we don't hold that against him. But being an enlisted guy, but him, there was just like a connection. We just clicked. And usually when we have conversations, they're not short. They go 45 minutes to hour and a half, and we get into some pretty deep conversations, and I absolutely love that. So he calls me up and says, "Hey man, are you still interested in expanding your Heroes line?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." He's like, "Why don't you come on down?" So we set up a time, went down there, and it was just like, and this was in the they had just moved to the new location. It's bigger. You walk in and you just smell all the coffee. You see the coffee in the bags, and it's an awesome experience. If you're ever in Virginia, I highly recommend to call them and go, at least just to go check it out and learn something. You learn so much each time you go down there. But then he sets up like all these filters. It's like, let's try these roasts, and he's like a mad scientist. He's just blending different. What do you think of this? How do you want this? Blah blah. And I think I'm thinking like, oh, okay, we're gonna only be down there for like an hour, like 4.5, 5 hours later, and after about 1,000 pounds of coffee that we sipped and whatnot, and we're all shaking there, like, oh yeah, it's gonna be good to go. Yeah, it's such an awesome experience. And I'm honored that I get the opportunity to work with you guys and have a blend, because it's some of the hardest working people that you'll ever meet. One, two, Eric really, he probably won't say this, but I'm going to say it for him. He really he loves to kind of educate people and present the coffee to you. So when you go in and you're doing like a tasting, he really breaks it down into detail, the coffee beans and what to look for in the different flavors and how it hits the palate and stuff like that. And it's such a cool experience. So again, if you're listening to the show, open up another browser, go to ricksroasters.com, find something that you like. They have it, I guarantee it, and order it today. You will not be sorry. So I wanted to put that out there. So Eric, you've been doing this for quite a while now.
Yeah, about 3 years, which is young compared to some folks.
Yeah, but you could tell that you're pretty passionate about it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Here's just a random question. What's your favorite part about it?
Oh man. I mean, aside from the all you can drink coffee that I get to take home. I mean, no, it's funny. So when and probably like a lot, like you and a lot of folks listening, when I grew up, coffee was this brown stuff that came in a red or blue can, and that was about as far as it went. Like there wasn't really much thought behind it.
Yeah,
nobody really knew or cared what it was. It was the best part of waking up was that nasty brown stuff in your cup, and yeah, you're dying here.
We're not sponsored by those. So I don't care.
But that was it. That was all the thought that went into it, right? So when I finally started roasting on my stovetop and just started it started off just a little bit at a time. Like I'd look up a bean, some beans from Ethiopia. Like I'd had Ethiopian coffee one time when I was a company commander. One of my NCOs still had some coffee that he had brought back. And I mean, and this stuff, like, 2 sips of this and we were all bouncing off the friggin' walls. I think we did like a 60-mile ruck march in about 2 hours or so. I mean, jeez. Like we were friggin' wired. So, tried that. We tried, then I would buy some coffee from, like Bali, and I'd buy some Brazilian coffee, and, and I was going, holy crap. Like, there really is different tastes to this.
Right.
And it's kind of like, it's kind of like wine taste. But then, you start going deeper into it, and, you you really start researching some of this stuff. And, what you don't really learn about coffee with mainstream coffee companies is that you don't know just how many people there are behind that cup of coffee in the morning.
Right.
There's some larger farms that they harvest. They do mechanical harvesting of the coffee fruit. It's coffee cherry, and they there's some mechanical processes involved of extracting the cherry pits. So I mean, a coffee cherry is a stone fruit, and what we're drinking up is roasted, ground up cherry pits, basically.
Nice.
But there's still one process which cannot be done by machine, and that is the sorting of the coffee beans, and it's all done by hand. And so in all of these villages all across the world where coffee's grown, there are, there could be 10, 20, 30 people who they are sitting there, and they probably know more about coffee than I will ever learn in my lifetime. And they can just take take a coffee bean, look at it, and know that, yep, that's a good one. Yep, that's a pea berry. Yep, that's a good one. That one's crap. Um, and so there are so many people involved in processing coffee. And so I like to tell people that coffee really does connect the world. And
Right.
so it's not just about sitting down and and having a cup of coffee with somebody, which is kind of a ritual in our culture and in
Right.
many other cultures, but it is a literal connection to the world. And I think that that's just I think that's the thing that fascinates me probably the most.
I never really looked at it that way. And I'm glad you bring that up because it really puts a new light on things. Like, you think coffee is like, you probably got a couple people out there picking it and then they're throwing it into a bag and it's getting
Yeah.
shipped to, wherever. Right. But like you just said, the process behind it, like, you and I have had conversations about coffee farms and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
let me ask you this for the listener. Does it take a lot? I mean, coffee grows on a tree, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And usually, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if it's a good year, you could probably get a couple of harvests out of that tree a year, usually. Yes?
That, and that's actually a question that I don't really know the answer to because that's still part of the process that I'm
Right.
learning.
So it's
But
like,
I will tell you that the climate is very specific. You can't just grow coffee anywhere.
right. So let me ask you this. At Rick's Roasters, how many different coffee beans do you guys use from different parts of the world, ideally?
I think right now we're up to 15 different
15.
types. Yeah.
Wow.
Some of them we don't use in blends. Some of them we just sell as special, sell on its own. Like we have some coffee from a farmer that we buy directly from in Honduras. We did have a deal where we were going to be buying some coffee directly from some Brazilian farmers, and in COVID, like all good stories last year.
Yeah.
And then we also have another farm that we work directly with in Colombia. We haven't gotten any of their coffee in lately because they had some import issues, but we're hoping that gets resolved too. But yes, I mean, we kind of fluctuate, and sometimes depending on my mood, much to my one partner's chagrin, is I might just be like, hey, I really want to try this coffee, and I just order a bag and see if we buy it, we roast it, we try and sell it, we market it, and if it's a hit, it's a hit. If it's not, like we did that with Volley Blue Moon, which is one of Liza's favorites. She'd pestered me for almost 2 years to bring in Volley Blue Moon, and then I finally did it. And when we introduced it, man, it took off. Like I now can't get rid of it. One, because she'll be mad at me, but
Right.
two, I mean, we have people that are constantly ordering this coffee, and it's great.
Right on. Let me ask you this: what's next for you guys?
Oh man, well, that's a good question. So it's part of part of it is just kind of recovering from 2020 and
Right.
trying to get everything back on track. There were obviously, and this kind of goes just across the board, really. We've had talks with a couple of different grocery store chains nationally, and they do, each grocery store does what they call a category review for different product categories, and they do one every year. But a lot of those got delayed because of COVID, because people kept getting sick.
Right.
And so we're hoping that by April, well, not April, probably April, May, we'll have a couple of these category reviews that go into our favor, and we'll start being able to push more coffee out nationally. Right now, we're kind of working through a rebrand, not a rebrand, but like we've cleaned up our social media, we've cleaned up our website, we're on Amazon, and all of it looks really slick and and polished, just like a lot of the major coffee brands. The problem is what we've come to realize is that when we polished it a little bit too much, we took out some of the personality. So we're we're working on, kind of showcasing ourselves. Like one coffee tasting that I did the other day, we had a tub of junk beans, and I decided to, our marketing consultant had made the joke one day about recreating the American Beauty picture with coffee beans. So I just sat down in a tub of coffee beans. I started making myself a coffee bikini, and we've talked about doing coffee angels and, just kind of goofy stuff. But, because he's like, yeah, you got to showcase your personality. I'm like, hey, you're really sure you want that? I mean, we can, but man, I don't know if you're ready for that. But not like not in like, some of the other veteran coffee companies that,
Right.
they're all about guns and bikinis, which totally fine, but that's not really us. Like,
Right.
I don't think, nobody's going to be
Different market.
logging on to see my dad bod going on.
Right.
So
Oh, nice. Eric,
yeah. So this year we're I think we're really prepped for a growth year, and then also with the stuff that we're doing with you with H&G Beverages and working the coffee line and things like that. I mean, we're really hopeful that a lot of this stuff will catch root, and as you've told me a few times, we go, oh crap, we gotta slow down for a few minutes and take our breath.
right.
But yeah, that's our hope for this year, and I think that by the end of the year we'll be well positioned for that. It's just kind of getting there. That's been
getting your legs back under you.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. No, I see it, as you know. Let me ask you this: what for somebody that's like looking for a coffee, that maybe wants to try something different or whatnot, what should they look for when somebody's looking at a coffee? Because you could go to a store, as you know, but there's a lot to choose from. But some of them, like you said, a lot of people are like, you go to the store and they're like, well, I'm used to seeing that, red label or blue label or ones that are orange or whatnot. And you're kind of like, like I look at those types of coffee as like, you're just paying for the name, and it's usually not that great. So what should somebody look for when they're picking out a coffee? Like, let's just say you're talking to somebody like, hey, I'd like a different type of coffee. I like kind of maybe a darker. Me, I'm an equal opportunist. It really depends on the day. If it's later on in the day, then I'm probably drinking something a little bit on the lighter side because I want to sleep that night. Where in the morning, it's it's usually the Heroes United, which is a little bit darker, and it's got a little bit of a punch to it. Like, all right, I'm awake. Let's do this. Kind of a thing. So, what would you tell somebody that's looking at coffee or wants to try something different? What should they look for?
Yeah, so I appreciate the softball. First there's really two kind of categories of coffee.
Okay.
There's commercial grade, which is there's specialty grade and there's commercial grade. And commercial grade is all the stuff that's left over that's not deemed specialty grade. And what that means is that you get less defects and you get less issues with specialty grade coffee. Commercial grade is quite literally the stuff that they basically sweep off the slab and sell at pennies per pound, and it's bulk coffee, and whatever you get in it, you get in it. And I mean,
God.
I'm not kidding. It is. So basically, think of it as like the hot dog of coffee.
I knew you were going to say.
Okay. I know. I told you this before.
Yeah.
So yes, I love that analogy. It's like, do you really know what's in your hot dogs? Well, it's also the same thing with commercial coffee. So, and commercial coffee cannot be labeled as specialty coffee. Number two is you'll either get there's two main branches of coffee. There's Robusta coffee, which tastes like burned tires and battery acid, in my humble opinion. It's higher in caffeine content. So if you don't care about your taste buds and want to, you want to scrape your tongue off with a Brillo pad, knock yourself out. But
or having a heart attack for that matter.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could have heart palpitations and stuff like that, and there's there's some coffees that they pride themselves on being the world's strongest coffee. They say nothing about taste. And when you look at their labeling, it just says 100% coffee, not 100% Arabica coffee. So Arabica coffee is the actual coffee that is, when it's specialty grade, you can actually drink it for taste and caffeine content. So you're looking for specialty grade, 100% Arabica coffee. And then the other telling thing is look for a roast date. And what you'll find a lot of times is that there's a coffee that sits on a grocery store shelf. I mean, it could have been roasted 6 months to a year ago, and you're not really getting quality coffee. We actually just went through kind of this same exercise with a grocery store that we're in, when they thought that we had a year of shelf life on our coffee, and I said, no, we're not going to sell year-old coffee to customers who are going to pay the prices that we're asking. We're going to, we'll keep the coffee on the shelves for 6 months, which to me is still too long, but considering what else is out there, it's still a better deal than what you're getting.
Right.
But you could get a lot of the larger coffee companies. You're going to get coffee that's been sitting on the shelves for up to a year. What's just not good.
What would you say the shelf would be like? And is there a way to prolong the shelf life, like stick it in the freezer or something like that? I don't know. That's what I'm asking, but it's like, so would you say like 3 to 4 months or something like that, and then stick it in the freezer, you might get a little longer life on it.
I mean, you could stick it in the freezer. It's generally not going to damage the coffee. What you'd really probably want to do is put it in an airtight container, because coffee kind of ages like bread, except it doesn't mold. But when it's exposed to oxygen, that's how it gets stale.
Got it.
So just really, you're just talking about the length of time that your coffee is exposed to air, and all of the aromatic compounds that come off of coffee over time to bleed off. Really, the best time to drink coffee is basically from 3 days after the roast date to about a month to a month and a half.
Gotcha.
But you can stretch it out probably to about 4 months. Before you have to start packaging it in tighter containers.
We usually go through a pound in about a week and a half. I mean, that's
lightweight.
Yeah. That's I'm being I'm being very generous in that.
I call that a slow Tuesday.
Yeah. Sometimes he doesn't even roast it, folks. He just starts dumping it in his mouth.
I just start mainlining it.
Let me ask you this. I got a couple more questions for you. Ground or whole bean?
So I mean, personally, I prefer grinding my own.
Okay.
But and actually, probably the best thing that you can do for your own coffee is invest in a really good grinder.
Yeah.
And you want what's called a conical burr grinder. So they're now you can pick them up in Target, for example, for like $50, and they got 18 different settings. And you go, man, do I really need 18 settings? Just for reference, my grinder has 60 settings, and so I can really dial it in.
Like, so is it kind of like processing meat? Like I think of like grinding coffee. You're like, well, does it make a big difference, or is the flavors different if you have like a whole bean that's ground in, like, let's say in like quarters, as opposed to just grounding to where it's like a very fine, I don't want to say powder form, but you get it to where it's really, really fine. So that's my other question is how do you brew it? I mean, a lot of people, we have a traditional, 12 cup coffee maker where we just put the filter in and whatnot. I have been wanting, I don't know what it's called, but it's like it's like a glass, you put the filter on top and then you pour hot water over it and it just kind of slowly seeps down. I don't know what that's called, but how would you recommend people doing it then?
So yeah, so there's a lot in there, and so first I'll just go back to saying, like, when I started with grinding my own coffee, I had a little Mr. Coffee blade grinder, and what part of the reason why you want to upgrade your grinder from that is because um, the those kinds of grinders don't grind the coffee evenly. So the what you're looking for is, you're looking, first of all, what you want is uniformity. So kind of like how you might look at your salt. You don't, when you have salt or sugar, you don't have clumps of salt or sugar. It's
Right.
all pretty uniform granules.
Right.
And for normal drip coffee, it's basically generally just a kind of straight down the middle medium grind. Like, there's no standard industry language to describe what grind is best, or what grind size. I mean, I suppose you could get really sciencey on it, but a good medium grind is good for a drip grinder or a drip brewer. And that's, like, when you get coffee from us, that's what your coffee is ground for, is kind of I'd say all purpose. And it's usually good for a drip grinder, or a drip brewer, or a pour over, which is what you're talking about. And even French press. The reason why grind size matters is because it's has to do with the contact time of water on the grinds. And so if you're doing espresso and you're shooting water through it, it quickly and at high pressure, you want really fine grinds, because you're trying to get as much coffee touching the water as possible.
Right.
If it's sitting in a French press or pour over, you can grind it a little more coarsely, because it's sitting there and absorbing the coffee. And then within those bands, the darker the coffee, you want it a little more coarse. If it's a little bit lighter roast, you want it a little more light. So if you get weak tasting coffee, it's probably because your grind is too fine. If it's sour tasting or bitter tasting, it's either green mermaid coffee, or it's or you've ground it too coarse.
Got it.
So,
Eric, I got one more question for you.
sure.
You're on a show called The Decision Hour.
Yep.
I asked this to all my guests, and the question is, name a time in your life where your feet were on the line and you had to make that decision. What was it, and what was the atmosphere like for you at that time?
I guess there's a couple of different ones that I could choose from. I tend to default. There's probably one event that just it's kind of defined my life in a lot of ways. And that was in Afghanistan. We basically we bebopped up into a valley because our higher headquarters said, "Hey, the Taliban has seized the district center. Go take it back." And that was about as much information as we had. Yeah, I mean, and it's totally stupid. And we're like, "Oh, okay, we'll go." And we rounded up a couple of our. I was an Afghan National Army advisor at the time, so we rounded up. We got a company of our Afghans from our battalion, our Kandak, and we got about 100 police together, and so we went and just kind of trundled up this valley. No recon, no nothing. We didn't have any assets. No medevac near us. This is out in Western Afghanistan. And long story short is that we took some back roads and just some gnarly mountain passes. And by the time we got into the valley, it was daylight. We drove all night into the day. We rested for a little bit. And then by the time we entered the valley, the sun was in our faces. So you can see where this is going.
Yeah.
So we got ambushed, and of course, we always used to joke about, oh, there's 700 Taliban and them Nar Hills. We'd cut a zero, and that was usually more like the case. And of course, we'd gotten the same reports this time. This time it happened to be true. So, we got ambushed by 700 Taliban. And the decision at that point was continue to fight or try and get the hell out of there, and maybe, just maybe, live to fight another day.
Right.
And the patrol leader wasn't really making decisions. I was a captain at the time. One of my teammates, he was also a captain, and we kind of took charge of the situation. And between the two of us, we fought like hell to withdraw. I mean, basically, we had, and the thing is our Afghans all kind of took cover in this little wadi, thinking that was going to protect them. Not thinking that the Taliban. So, and I don't know how much people know about Afghanistan in particular, but like, we teach our kids to throw baseballs and footballs. The Taliban teach their kids how to kill the invaders.
Right.
I mean, it's just something that you pass down to your kids.
Right.
And so, we're taking effective mortar fire. I mean, these guys are fucking snipers. Right. Pardon my French.
No, they're lobbing it in on you guys. And
these guys are snipers.
Afghan's it's a very mountainous region.
Yeah.
And those that don't know, we've had other Afghan vets on, but it's a very mountainous region, and some of those passes that you're going up and down are, you're threading what we call threading the needle. It's one vehicle, it's one way. Like, if somebody's coming the other way, somebody's going to back up a couple miles before, because it's or into a pull off, because it's not, you're not crossing paths usually on it. So I'm assuming you guys got out of there. Obviously.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think, that's why I'm. But yeah, it was. It was, I don't know, 10 to 13 hours of almost a constant gunfight to get out of that valley.
Wow.
And
with
it was
no support, no nothing.
Well, we eventually got a British Harrier who was, he was on station and did a show of force at like 5,000 feet, and I was like. He says, comes over the radio, show of force complete, mate. And I'm like, that's great. Where were you? Oh, I can't find the targets through my binos. I'm going, wait, you're trying to spot targets at 10,000 feet, flying at like 400 miles an hour with 10-power binoculars.
Yeah.
So that was the support that we had. So we really were on our own.
Thanks,
we had,
mate.
Well, and it was one of those things. I mean, like I say, it was either we fail our mission or we live. And so we kind of, we said we didn't have the assets that we needed to actually do the mission properly.
Right.
And that was probably, and again, it's part of our military culture of, the mission.
Right.
But at that point, when you're faced with overwhelming odds, and quite frankly, it was, we had 150 Afghans and 20 American advisors. The odds are not stacked in their favor.
Right.
So, I'm personally not a fan of fair fights. I think the only fight that you lose is a fair fight.
Right.
And so this was a pretty fair fight, and I didn't want to stick around for it because I like stacking a deck in my favor.
Jeez, I don't blame you, man. I don't blame you.
The follow on to that is about 2 weeks later. The special forces ODA that we frequently supported got some of their buddies together in a larger force, and then we'll just say they imposed their will on that district center and held it down for a while.
Nice.
So eventually that district center became a forward operating base, but back in the days of 2007, that place was like the freaking Wild West. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that decision hour with us, and all your knowledge about coffee and whatnot. Folks, if you're listening to the show again, go to ricksroasters.com. Follow them on social media. They're on the gram. They're on Facebook. They do a lot of stuff on Instagram. At least that's where I see it because it's on there quite a bit. So make sure you check that out. If you're in Virginia ever, down near the Fredericksburg area, highly, highly, highly recommend that you give Eric a call, stop by, do a tasting, learn about the coffee, how it's made, and watch the process. It's really something else to see. So, Eric, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Adam. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Folks, that's all the time that we have. Again, ricksroasters.com. Check it out. Shout out to our parent company, Heroes Media Group. Go check out all the new shows and all the shenanigans that we got going on. If you haven't gone there, we've recently changed the website, so check that out. Simply go to www.heroesmediagroup.com. Until next time, you've been listening to The Decision Hour.